So it's just a run through. Right. Sorry, everybody in Zoom land. We had some issues. We were on a different Zoom. So we're going to try again. So for everybody in the room, that was just a practice run through for the first few slides, and we're going to do it again. So let me kind of check around with my team one more time. Are we good? Are we recording? Yeah, thank you. And we have people here on Zoom. Awesome. Okay, great. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. I am Callie Wilsey, for the record. I am the Director of Policy and Strategy for the City of Reno. And I am joined by Kimmy Shigetani with Flow Analytics. She's with our independent data analytics firm who is consulting on the project with us. Tonight is our third and final community meeting in the 2023 redistricting process, where we are redrawing the boundaries of the City of Reno to create a sixth ward. Thank you for being here tonight, whether you are here in person or on Zoom. I know I have personally enjoyed and appreciated the very many conversations I've had with you throughout the process so far. So let's go ahead and dive in. So tonight, here's what you can expect. We're going to provide a summary of what we heard from you in phase 2 and your thoughts on the 6 scenarios that we provided a month ago. We're going to outline the 4 final map options and some of the variables within those maps. And while this is our last community meeting together, your opportunity to provide input doesn't end tonight. So we're going to explain how you can make sure that your voice is heard with council. We're going to end tonight with a Q&A session if you have any final questions for us. So for those of you who are on Zoom and want to take a look at the maps, they are on the website reno.gov/redistricting. You will, it is often difficult to present and look at the maps, and they're so big and detailed. So we wanted to make sure you had access to them in advance. We've updated the maps to provide a little bit more detail. So you can have, when you click on the PDF versions where it says final map option A, B, C, or D, you'll get a more detailed map plus the summary statistics. Just below that is the redistricting web application, which this is the interactive tool that allows you to zoom in, zoom out, move around the map, and kind of get a little bit closer look at where the boundaries are. And then we also are going to continue forward with the redistricting drop-in center here at Reno City Hall. We have large format maps that will be in the lobby, and you can come look at those during normal business hours for the City of Reno. The slide says it's going to start on Monday, but our IT team was fantastic today, and we have the maps actually posted now. So starting tomorrow, normal business hours, if you want to come down and look at them, feel free. So a quick reminder about why we're here tonight and what the impact of this process will be. The process determines which neighborhoods and communities are grouped together for the purposes of electing a council member. The city charter requires us to transition from 5 wards to 6 wards in 2024, and this change was recommended back in 2016 by the Charter Committee. It was adopted into law, our Reno City Charter, by the Nevada Legislature in 2017. As a part of this change, the composition of your city council changes a little bit too. While there will both be 7 members now, or when the change is done, the 6th ward will be added and the at-large council member position goes away. From a timing perspective, we need to get the new 6th Ward map to the Washoe County Registrar by September 1st. The City Council will be reviewing the maps in August with the goal of getting the maps to the Registrar based on that timeline. And then the Washoe County Registrar goes into a period of election preparation. And then we have the election in 2024. The complete transition will happen when a 6th Ward member takes office next November. Districting process kicked off about 2 months ago, and we broke the community input process into 3 different phases. First, back in June, you provided your input on communities of interest and defining neighborhoods. We heard about different neighborhoods and communities throughout the entire city. That feedback was turned into 6 draft scenarios. And for the last month, we've been hearing from you about these 6 drafts. What did you like, what you didn't like, what you thought you could change, or what you thought would make it better, which ones you really hated. And our team has been going through these surveys, maps, all the maps that were submitted on the mapping tool, and the many emails that we received to create 4 final options for you tonight. So we want to summarize a bit what we heard from you about those 6 maps. Here's a high-level summary. We heard a strong preference and priority toward visual compactness. Where there were wards that were stretched in some of the scenarios, we received a lot of comments and concerns about that, and a priority for the final map to be more visually compact. Conversation about downtown also continued in this round with multiple perspectives. Should downtown be represented by 1 ward or multiple wards? Individuals who supported multiple wards felt that the entire community should be represented in downtown as it's the economic driver. And individuals who supported 1 ward in the downtown area said they felt the community had regressed. More people are living downtown and it should have a more cohesive viewpoint for the area. Combined with compactness comments that we received, we saw more support for 1 ward in the downtown area. Another point is the varying definition of which way, which direction, and to what degree the downtown ward should stretch. If we captured every place where people thought that there was a connection to downtown, it put us well above the ideal, the target population, so that wasn't feasible. So this concept of which direction downtown will go, could go, will be represented in several of the maps you will see tonight. We received quite a few comments about the university area as well. People noted that the university area is broader than just the university parcel, and we received comments about connections to neighborhoods to the north, the south, the east, and the west of the university. Also noted that they liked the idea that a ward should have similar issues and needs as best it could throughout the ward. As an example, a person spoke about parking issues and said, parking issues up in my area in the North Valleys, not the issue. That's not what we're concerned about. But they understood that that could be a really big issue in the downtown and university area. Another that we heard a lot about was receiving continued comments on communities of interest in neighborhoods throughout the city. We heard about communities of interest in residential areas in South Reno, up in the North Valleys, large PUDs like Somerset and Collin Ranch, and smaller neighborhoods like Country Club Acres, and folks saying, these are my neighborhoods, please keep them together. But the comments about community of interest also expanded to how individual neighborhoods interact with one another, such as how Donner Springs, Mira Loma, and Neal Road kind of identified as one community of interest. Similarly, we heard that Lake Ridge, Ranchera, and the Del Monte area really connected with each other as well. Overall, maps that represented downtown as 1 ward received higher median scores on the survey. Those were draft scenarios 5, 6, and 1. Scenario 2 was ranked the highest of the maps that represented multiple touch points downtown. The 4 highest maps were used in the creation of the final options, and we are going to dive into that. Just a similar note, the complete public input log for the entire process is available online at reno.gov/redistricting. So I'm going to turn it over to Kimmy, and Kimmy is going to walk us through these maps. We've lost control of the PowerPoint.
Okay, it's far easier to explain this when we're on the right slide. So the redistricting process that we embarked upon with the city it starts with the data collection. And when I say data collection, I mean the 2020 census data and then the most recent American Community Survey data. So we developed and evaluated scenarios. Scally's walked through with both community and council input. And then because this is kind of an iterative process, 6 maps that we presented to you back in June. And then we made space to do a review of all of the community input and the council input to reach these final 4 plans. And we recognize that not everybody is going to love the final plan or even the final 4 plans. But this is meant to be a transparent process. And so I would encourage everyone to send their comments to council as we go. Redistricting principles. This is a nice review for everyone that's been here for the past 2 meetings. But the process is governed by a series of principles that have been adopted by the city council. And there are some musts. We must comply with local, state, and federal laws, including the Voting Rights Act. Wards must be nearly equal in population. They should be geographically contiguous. And we do have an aspect to the musts this time around. We also must retain council members who are in wards 2 and 4 because their election cycle goes past the 2024 election into 26. All 4 final options of these maps meet these requirements. There are, in addition, 3 shoulds. Those shoulds are that we should preserve neighborhood integrity. We should natural boundaries as much as possible, and wards should be as compact as possible. Primary foundation. Yeah. I feel like I'm very loud now. So the effect of redistricting is really around equal population for each ward. For Reno, we're looking at about 44,000 people for each ward. And I do want to note that there is, as part of this process, the city's requirement that in a deviation for any of the maps be 5% or under. Generally, I've upheld maps with deviations up to 10%, but really 5% is the Reno requirement. And I think it's, and I think 10 or 20 years ago when we didn't have the technology we have today, up to 10% made a lot of sense when we were drawing maps in other ways. And these days with all of the technology we have, it's much easier to get down to lower deviations. Over the final 4 maps. It's a total deviation of 4.9, tweaking under that 5%. This map is a combination of the scenarios 5 and 6 that were presented back in June. So we took a lot of the community back around maps 5 and 6, and we tried to incorporate it into map A. So this is one of them that shows downtown as 1 ward. It's the blue ward kind of in the center of the maps. Trees are such so that it's south. We go south of the Truckee Road Street as the boundaries. It stretches to the easternmost part of Reno to include the 4th Street corridor, northeast neighborhood, including Audie, Well, Montello, and Paradise Park areas. It also includes a portion above McCarran that includes the Talent Bay and Socrates areas. These areas, in particularly the Socrates area, we got a lot of community feedback that they feel a stronger connection to the university area than to the upper parts of North Valley. It also captures some of the residential area to west up to Washington Street, as we also had a great deal of comment about the connection between the university and housing in that area. In all of South Reno, in Ward 6, which is the purple ward at the bottom, is unified. The South region to be more visually compact compared to scenario 5, which was also a comment that we received as feedback through that process. Ward 3, we adjusted the boundaries through the South Virginia corridor to accommodate several communities of interest and ensure that overall deviation could be met. This includes Midtown and connections between the Limberry Street neighborhood and East Grove Street neighborhood. This map also does split the Virginia Lake area up, so that is something to consider. Ward 2 in this map, which is the yellow ward, would shift compared to today's current boundaries. So this ward does include many identified communities of interest. So Lake Ridge, Ranchera, and the Del Monte area, Coughlin Ranch, Country Club Acres, and the Hunter Lake area are all within Ward 2. Ward 5 and Ward 4 have shifting in their boundaries, but for the most part remain the same throughout all 4 maps. And Ward 5 is that western reach that the city does. And then Ward 4 is the green, the northernmost reach. For final option B is derived from draft scenario 2. And so this option represents multiple in the downtown area. So there were some adjustments made to this map based on the community input. We have 3 wards intersecting in the downtown area rather than 5, which is what happened in the first couple of iterations. We do address the visual compactness concern we heard in the comments, as well as concerns related to splitting section in the North Valley and West Reno that were also in a previous iteration. Ward 1 would represent the area surrounding the South Virginia corridor, including Midtown, Virginia Lake, and Meadowood. Ward 3, the Northeast neighborhood, and stretch it down to neighborhoods surrounding the airport, which is a little bit different. The neighborhoods of Road are not in Ward. They were identified as broader communities of interest, and so they're in different wards. Ward 6, the purple ward, encompasses South Reno and does a stretch up the east side to capture a little bit of the southern portion of Reno. This map does keep Double Diamond Ranch and De Monte whole. The overall deviation of this map is 4.2%. So map C is a version that was derived from draft scenario 1 that was presented in June. In the survey, we had a lot of comments that people really liked this version because it most closely reflects the current ward structure, and it was sort of perceived as to have the least amount of change. So this map has an overall deviation of 3.4%. Represents downtown in 1 ward. In this case, it's the center ward that's purple, and it's Ward 6. Option A, the downtown ward here drops south to include the Old Southwest and generally uses the river as a boundary for the southeast side. On the north side, we are unable to capture the Tallis Way area, but we were able to keep the Socrates area connected to the university. The downtown capture more of the residential area to the west using Keystone. Reno would look very similar as to how it is today. Ranch into Ward 3, so as to not break up that particular community of interest, but De Monte Ranch and De Monte Foothills would still be split up between Wards 2 and 3, as that was needed to accommodate population requirements. Ward 5 represents, as in all the maps, sort of this western arm of Reno, all above I-80. For map D, This is the final option, not the final option. This is the last of the 4 maps I'm presenting. That's probably a better way to say that. And this has deviation at 2.2%. Another look at how a downtown ward, one ward, could look. And it is the blue ward in Ward 1, the center. Heard from people that folks felt that the downtown ward should stretch as far south as Taylor Street. And in order to keep the Wells Avenue area together, the southern boundary actually drops to Plum Lane. It also includes a connection to Midtown and the Old Southwest. Similar to option C, is used as the western boundary. And on the north, McCarran is the boundary, and the neighborhoods just north of that, of McCarran, remain in Ward 4. Ward 3, which is the Green Ward, sorry, would encompass the northeast neighborhood as well as East Grove, Neal Road, Donner Springs, and the Mira Loma neighborhoods.
Okay. Let's try that. Okay. So the 3 arms of Reno are Ward 4 to the north, Ward 5 to the west, and Ward 6 to the south. In Ward 6, the southern ward, Double Diamond Ranch and DeMonte are both full within that ward. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back to Callie so she can finish off the presentation.
Thank you, Kimmy. All right. I switched mics here, hoping that that helps. So these same options that we just talked about tonight will be presented to the council on August 9th. As we head into this final phase, how you give your input is shifting from what we're used to for the last 2 months. We want to walk through how that process will work to make sure that those comments go directly to council. And here's how you can make that happen. So this is our standard public commenting process for council meetings. By 4 p.m. the day before the council meeting, there's an online form on our website, reno.gov/public comment, that you can fill that out and that gets submitted into the official record. You can also email publiccomment@reno.gov and submit your comments that way. You can also leave a voicemail at 775-393-4499. All of these comments are formally gathered by the city clerk, shared with council, and added to the public record. You can also participate directly during the council meetings on August 9th and August 23rd. Adjusting the ward boundaries is enacted through an ordinance, which is 2 votes of council. So on August 9th, the ordinance introduction is scheduled where council will discuss the options, ideally select one, and introduce the ordinance. August 23rd is when council would come back for adoption of that ordinance. You can provide comments at these meetings, both in person. If you decide to come in person, check in with the city clerk and fill out a request to speak form. You can also register via Zoom for those council meetings, and the link for those registrations is always on the council meeting agendas when those agendas get posted in accordance with state law. So tonight, as I mentioned, with the feedback process really transferring to this formal public comment, we want to end tonight if there are any questions from the community. If you have comments, we're happy to hear them, but I would really encourage you to use the tools that we just talked about to make sure that they go direct to council for their deliberative process. We've kind of captured everything up to tonight through all the maps, the surveys, and all of that will be in council's packet, but we're kind of shifting that tonight. So thanks again for everyone who has participated. I feel like we learned a lot together. I did, and I really appreciated the comments. But I do want to open up the mics if there are any final questions. If you are here in the room, reminder, I'm going to walk around with the microphone, make sure it's working. So thank you. If there are any questions, come on up. If you are on Zoom and have a question, feel free to raise your hand.
Hello. I noticed that on your maps, Collin Ranch is excluded from the color coding, and then some are set up in here. And within the districts, there's certain blank areas that the district goes around these certain areas of town. Why is that?
Oh, great, great. Thank you for the question. So the redistricting process only encompasses land that is City of Reno land. So some of the areas that you are referring to is actually within the county. Other questions? It looks like we have some on Zoom. Donna, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself? How are you?
I think I just pushed enough allow buttons that you can probably hear me.
We can hear you now.
Thank you. Your audio was kind of breaking up, so that was unfortunate during your presentation. I wanted to ask, I missed a little bit of the comments. You, on several of these, said what draft scenario it was fundamentally started from. So was there one that final option D was derived from scenario something or another as a generic base? I missed that. Draft map.
Donna, it didn't necessarily derive from one of the 6 scenarios. What it derived from was comments that around the downtown area going a different direction that the other maps couldn't accommodate due to population.
I see, because one of them I can see you said that was from draft scenario 1 more or less, and that I don't know, a couple of them you said that, and I thought I don't know, I thought I just missed a comment about that. But when you were doing this, and I think I had this question for you in writing at one point about the communities of interest, that I did notice you made the map more clear. Put it on the map. Geez, my dog went off the last time we did this. I'm so sorry. If somebody else wants to talk, can you come back to me? Because it might be too noisy.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and mute yourself. We'll go to somebody else and come back to you, Donna.
All right, thank you.
It looks like somebody's on the phone. Last 4 digits, 9394. Please unmute yourself. How are you tonight?
Good evening. This is William Mansell. How are you?
Hi, William.
Perfect. So my comment for tonight is, 1, thanks for these new revisions. I think they're all vast improvements over the previous draft maps, and I want to commend the city staff for doing an excellent job and Flow Analytics. My question is regarding option D. On the distribution for Ward 3, is that a minority-majority district?
We're taking a closer look. Hold on. Did you say option B as in boy or D as in dog?
D as in dog, as in Donald Duck.
I don't believe so, William. We're can you talk about that a little bit?
So
It looks
majority,
like it's 45.8% Latino Hispanic and 34% white, if I recall correctly. I don't have it up in front of me. And that wasn't allowed, but I'm not, a scholar on the Voting Rights Act, because I didn't know if that meant that was technically packing under that definition of gerrymandering, because it's such an overrepresentation of Hispanic Latino and an underrepresentation of white.
So to address your first question, the Voting Rights Act uses the citizen voting age population to determine whether or not there's a majority minority district. So I think that on the slides, only the total population is listed. And if you look, there's PDFs that have additional data
And it's the citizen voting age population that determines majority minority districts or wards in this case. And for map option D, it is the highest is 29.5% Hispanic, so it would not be considered a majority minority ward.
Perfect. That totally clears up my question because I was only seeing one set of data and I didn't realize that. Otherwise, on option C, the portions for Ward 2 and Ward 3, as well as maybe a bit of Ward 1 and Ward 3, look like those are kind of sandwiched in between the wards, like they have like an outcropping that is surrounded on 3 sides by another ward. Can you talk about what made that most practical for a decision of mapping?
William, can you tell us the maps again? Sorry, we're having trouble hearing the difference between the letters.
I'm sorry, it's option C, where
C is in Cali?
South C is in Cali.
Deal. Okay.
So I believe that's the map where the southern area of Reno is between Ward 3 and 2, and Ward 6 is placed in downtown, roughly.
Okay, we are looking at the same map. Can you repeat the question for us?
My question is, what was the mapping thought process for creating these kind of outcroppings? Because there's kind of U shapes or C as in Cali shapes, where you see kind of a bulging of a ward and it's surrounded on 3 sides by another ward. Why is that a design preference?
I can answer that because I just remember talking with Kimmy about this. So that in particular, if this map, we received comments generally from scenario 1 that people liked the concept. This was as close to our current map as possible, which kind of has that split in South Reno. But we also received comments that about several of the PUDs in that area. So that bulge in particular is able to capture double diamond into 1 ward and keep that community of interest in its entirety. But based on population, you couldn't get the other areas surrounding it.
Okay, then that's all I have. Thanks so much for taking the time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks, William, for joining us. Let's go to Bill on the Zoom. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for all the work that goes into this and all the staff and everybody who's probably home getting a good night's rest. So first of all, start with that. I wonder if anybody got their crystal ball out when we were drawing these maps and was projecting population growth 7 years or so down the road when the census requires us to potentially redistrict again.
Thanks, Bill, for the question. It's actually a question that we had received from multiple people as well. It really becomes kind of an issue of what's the right word is making sure the data is clean and accurate and coming from one source to make sure that we are in compliance with that 5%. Projections are not real. They may not happen. They may change. They may shift directions. So it became a challenge to do that. And within that 5% deviation, really, it's kind of like there's not that many people kind of when we look at the total number of people that would shift that in terms of growth. So, knowing that we go through this every 10 years, that's kind of why the thought process is that you do it every 10 years because you know that communities change.
Okay. No, I appreciate that perspective. And thank you guys for all the work that goes into this and look forward to seeing where it goes. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. Looks like Tony. Tony, can you hear us? Want to unmute yourself? Tony going once. But we'll come back to Tony. Oh, okay. All right, let's try. Evan, let's go to you. How are you tonight?
Hello, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, my name is Evan Robinson for the record. I had a question about map B. So I see that we put the university kind of in the same ward with like more of like kind of like South Reno and like also like the airport and stuff like that. And I was just wondering kind of what the thought process was behind doing that.
Evan, so map B in particular is one of the is the map that really represents the perspective that we heard from the community about having multiple wards touch downtown. So what that happens is when you have that, then it starts to kind of splinter out from the center, and then you start trying to capture population to meet that mold. So that map kind of fundamentally is meant to kind of start from the center and go outward in different directions.
And then I'm sorry, could you explain like maybe in different words, like what the purpose of doing that is? Like what is the benefit to like having different words touch downtown? And like splitting it up like that? Like what is that? How does that benefit the downtown area?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So commenters who supported that rationale feel like everybody in the entire city has a stake in the success of downtown. And wanted multiple to have multiple council members with that stake, particularly as downtowns can be economic drivers for the community. So that is the perspective that we heard from the community on one side.
Thank you. I really appreciate that answer. That really helps me understand map B more because I didn't necessarily understand that at first. And I also just wanted to say thank you to the city of Reno and just like the city council in general for being very transparent during this process and doing a great job of providing the public a really good amount of time to give feedback and understand these maps during this redistricting process. I'm very thankful for that. Thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you. All right, Donna, we're back to you. How's your dog?
Well, thanks for asking. She's fine. Some random rang my bell, and she knew it was a random, so she went.
That's how it always happens.
And it always happens. Anyway, so I forgot where. I guess I'm a little bit curious about this process in that when I looked at all these draft maps the first time, and then I put in a new draft map after my new map after your draft maps, like that. There were quite a lot of them up. I didn't count them, but at one point there were, I don't know, in the 80s maps or something. I don't know how many did you end up with maps and comments?
There were quite a few. I also can't remember the number off the top of my head, but that seems in the right range to me.
So what I'm wondering about that is, what do you do? Do you just GIS them on top of each other and see how everything plays out and say, which percentage odds you get the most ones in the most areas? Or how can you possibly process that many maps?
I'm going to let Kimmy kind of talk about how the demographers do that with Flow.
Sure. So that's a great question. And so typically what we do when we have a tool like Districtor is we do actually look at every single map our demographers do. And in addition to that, we will send PDFs of all of those maps to the city for their public record. And so the analysis process is really, for us, typically, we look for common themes between community submitted maps. And then we look for typically anything that might be an outlier in terms of shape or things like that, that maybe we haven't seen in other maps or haven't seen in current maps that we might want to suggest using as well. So
all of the maps are looked at, and we generally are just searching sort of for common themes throughout most of them. And just on a side note, there are often incomplete maps that are submitted. And so we typically only look at fully completed maps.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's a little confusing to the average bear to go through this and try to make sense of it because you know, I see some things that are really great that came out of this and these final map drafts that you are going to give to council. And I also see some things that are like, uh-oh, you know, why is that happening? Like the previous gentleman asked you about extending the university all the way to McCarran kind of thing. That there's no correlation between the interests in the north end and the south end of final map B, the Ward 3. I mean, I can't say there's no, but I would think there would be very little correlation between the interests of the university area and the people at Meadowood. And so I understand from your explanation that that was done for, you know, to get more wards into downtown. So maybe that wasn't the best idea. So I guess that's why. But some of these I don't really understand, and I need a large format printer so I can look at them better, I guess. Anyway, thank you. I don't really have any questions. It sounded to me like you don't actually really want verbal comment as much as you want written comment for council.
I just want to make sure that those comments get submitted formally to that process. So I don't want to miss it.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, then I'll take on that task eventually. Thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
Thanks, Donna. We have another comment here in person.
How you doing? Willie Poochert, existing Ward 5. I just first wanted to say thank you very much to you and the staff. I mean, I think it's pretty fair and transparent so far before it gets to the political phase. And I do have a few comments and then I will give you a question. I'm one of the proponents of downtown being its own ward. And I wasn't always like that. I think there are a few that probably agreed with me that downtown has had a lot of emphasis over the years, and it's resulted in several problems, redevelopment, debt, yada, yada, yada. But you're starting to have people move down there. You're starting to have communities of interest. You have the brewery district, you have the university, you have the CARES campus. And especially for those who are moving downtown, you want to have amenities like a supermarket, not just liquor stores where you have overpriced food and everything. You have actual produce and meat. And I think that that's something that should be thought about in advocating that ward, that downtown have its own ward. I think when we do this process that everybody has a seat at the table, not just one area split into a couple areas that's dominated by a special interest. So, also I would like to ask, as it goes out of this phase and into the council members phase, how will it be able to be changed? Will the council work on just these four, or will the process be able to be changed?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So these 4 maps will be the ones that Kimmy and I present to council on August 9th. Council does have the authority to direct us to change those maps or create a whole new one. They can do that on August 9th. They would do it publicly in the meeting after listening to public feedback. If that ends up being the case, we would go back and do that and then rebring back a new map or whatever they directed to the 23rd for introduction again. So there wouldn't be, if they directed us, we would just go and do that. And then we would bring it back and then comments would happen publicly, similar to the 9th on the feedback from public, like public comment at the meeting, the same things we talked about tonight. All right, Evan, do you have another question? I can't tell if your hand was just still up.
Yes, I do have another question, actually.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, how is the final map going to be chosen?
So the map is selected by the city council. So these 4 maps will be presented to them. We were just kind of talking about, they could select one of these in its entirety. They could direct us to change some of the maps for further discussion, but ultimately they have to select one. It's adopted through an ordinance, so they have to do an introduction, and then the next meeting they do adoption, and it's a 5/7 vote. So it's a super majority vote for this item.
So if they're unable to get to a super majority, what happens?
I'll be talking to the city attorney's office and asking for direction on what to do. We do have time if they need to kind of go back and forth, or we receive some of that direction. You know, the idea would be to seek consensus on a map with the city council to get them to a place where they are comfortable both introing and adopting an ordinance. All right, I think that's it. Oh, Pablo, come on up.
Question. So what happened if so you present all the board meeting to a serious council member on August 9th? What happened if one couldn't desire they want to change? So that to set up for the special meeting.
Are you talking about the timing, like to get it done by September? So if council needs some additional time, let's say they direct us on August 9th to make some changes, and we would need to bring back intro again on August 23rd. We could do that. And if they still provided that direction to us on the 23rd, we would provide the county clerk the maps from that first action step, and then confirm the action in September when they adopt. Hold on.
Second question is the option A look like similar to the option 6 from last time. Look very similar, but with the fixed map, but more community makes sense. So I think the option A is the strongest one compared to B, C, and D. So has to be on the like as all split up of New World downstream area. Maybe you could add a New World to Ward 1 and then downstream to Ward 3. But if I said final, toss it out.
Well, thanks, Pablo. Make sure you use those tools we talked about tonight so council can hear those comments from you. All right, we've got one more. If you are on Zoom and have, oh, we do. More people have raised their hand. Good.
So just taking on what he said, one thing, if it gets extended, you've got people that are deciding whether they want to run. That affects them, right? Because they don't know. They don't know what their ward's going to be. And secondly, you have people up there, and I hate to throw a wrench in things, but it just needs to be brought up. There's people up there that are already raising money right now, right? They're able to raise money. They know they're going to be running. They know what seats they're running. They know. But there's others that don't, including people that may want to run, but can't raise money yet because they don't know what they're running for. They don't know if they're in a district or not. So that's, I know there's something you can solve right now, but it's something that definitely needs to be brought up to the public because it's an unfair thing.
Well, thanks for that comment. Appreciate it. All right, let's turn back to the Zoom. Evan, it looks like you have another question. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Oh, I didn't have another question. My laptop had died, and so I had rejoined on my phone, and I just wanted to apologize for like the abrupt pause from me.
Oh,
that's it.
No worries. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Tony, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just want to say thank you to the entire team that was working on all the maps. I also wanted to share, so Tony Ramirez with Make the Road, an organization that represents community members. We wanted to share that we, like map A, to us, it looks like it keeps all the communities of interest together. So that's, so I want to say thank you for all that.
Great. Thank you for your feedback. All right, well, it looks like we are going to wrap it up. We appreciate everybody participating and attending all these community meetings the last few months. And we look forward to finishing this up with council come August. So thank you all. And we appreciate you. Have a great night.